It's finally game week. Finally game week. Texans off. I wanted to take a second to look at some elite perspective from the Texans. And we've heard a lot of spirituality from this team. It starts with CJ Stroud. You've heard it from Will Anderson. You've heard it from Jalen Petrie. And this is a team that has a lot of talent, and it's very easy to root for. But one of the most impressive things that I've heard, and really it's been a combination of what I've heard the last 8 months from this person, came from Dameon Pierce. And Dameon Pierce last year, the reality of the situation is he did not perform to the standard that we'd expected. And I've described Dameon Pierce at the end of last year as unplayable. And there's plenty of time to get into performance. And we'll react to every single game, including the game on Thursday, the Hall of Fame game. And we'll talk about where the players came up short. It'll be focused on. It's part of the gig. But I just want to talk about something that I think is relatable and is something that is beyond impressive from Dameon Pierce. And we got to go back to the Cleveland Browns game last year. The first one, not the second one, when Dameon Pierce returned a kick for a touchdown. And this was amidst him not being able to get on the field as a running back. Devin Singletary had emerged as the number one guy. And Dameon Pierce found himself on the sidelines. And after the game, he was on the post-game show with Sean Pendergast and Clint Sterner. And I was beyond impressed that a young man at his age, in his early 20s, that's doing something that's probably come easy to him up to that point, in the moment of struggling, was able to have the perspective to say, this is going to be one of the most valuable experiences of my life. It's one thing to be able to reflect. And a lot of time reflection it's not optional unless you just want to be delusional. And reflection, a lot of times you don't have that same perspective in the moment. I know I damn sure would not have, in my early 20s, in that situation, had that type of perspective. But Dameon Pierce had it, and I found it extremely impressive. And you see how he looks in camp right now. He's trimmed up, and he still has that perspective. So I wanted to ask Dameon Pierce after practice. And by the way, thank you, everyone, to getting me to 10,000 earlier this week. We're already at 10.1. We're pushing 10.2. So be sure to subscribe, right along for the best Texans coverage in the country. But I wanted to ask Dameon Pierce, not just about the perspective, because it's easy to look back, but how does someone that young, amidst perhaps the most struggles that he's gone through on a football field, how does he have that type of perspective? I think you're going to like this, and it makes Dameon Pierce, again, we'll get into performance, but if you're not rooting for this guy, I don't know if you have a pulse. Here's Dameon Pierce when I asked him about how a young man at that age is able to have the perspective that most of us probably could not and would not have. Here's Dameon Pierce. In the middle of the season, you weren't even reflective. Like in the moment, you were saying it was a very valuable year for you, perhaps your most important as a pro. What allowed you, like in the moment where a lot of people would be frustrated, to have that type of mindset? And do you still feel like last year was real valuable for you?
Yeah, 5 years from now, bro, I'm gonna be able to say that year 2 was my best year. Probably not on paper, but the process and the growth that I had mentally is going to be something that's carry over to every year that I play in this league. Just being able to deal with the lows, being able to battle through injuries, being able to bounce back, being able to just sit back and see that, it's necessarily not a bad thing. It's unfortunate, right? Nobody wants to be on the sideline. Nobody wants to be hurt. Of course, I want to be, I want to be Peasy. I want to be DP. I want to be out there making plays. I want to be out there with my guys. I want to be out with my brothers. But ultimately, the first step in solving a problem is honesty. And if we're being honest, I didn't invest enough time into myself. I didn't invest enough time into my body. I didn't invest enough time in making sure I was, clear on the playbook and sound in my fundamentals. So at the end of the day, the only person I can point the finger at is me. So knowing that and going through that process with that mentality, it helped me a lot in terms of, not trying to point the blame at anybody else and just owning my situation, coming back, showing the coaches that I've grown, showing the coaches that I got in better shape mentally and physically.
What allows you to do that in the moment, though? Because you're young. I know I wouldn't be able to do that. What allows you in the moment to be able to do that?
I just have a great circle of people around me. I have a lot of. I think the most important thing about my circle is I have a lot of people who are honest around me. You know, I got a lot of people who aren't afraid to tell me, "Hey, DP, you know, you tripping, bro? Like this ain't you. Like, get better, do better. Like I expect more from you." I got a lot of people who have a lot of high expectations of me, and also I have a high expectation of myself. So anything a coach can say to me, anything, you know, my mom can say to me, I done already beat myself up 1,000 times over it before they can even come to me once about it. So that just goes to show, you know, how hard I am on myself and how I internalize that and how I process that, and you know what I'm saying, do it in a healthy way. I think that's the most important thing, doing it in a healthy way, having a circle around me, and just going through it like that, man. I just know, like my mom, she's somebody I lean on a lot of times. Like, now I hate to say it, but like when I get in my moods, you know, I get in moods where I don't want to talk to nobody, and she understands that, but she keep pushing me. She like, "Hey, I know you mad right now, but I'm here. I still love you." And I just want to apologize to her publicly. Like, you know, Mom, I'm sorry. I still love you. You know, ain't no love lost. But I definitely got to give credit to my mom, you know, for being my rock always, like she always has been. And just, you know, years like that, like I just know my mom is one of the people, like in years like that, she's going to be the one with me at my lowest lows, and she's going to be the person by me through my highs and everything in between.
I mean, that's incredible. And it's not even really expected. Look, I remember when Deontay Foreman was here, and we had him in studio a couple of times. Rest in peace, Derek Foreman, his father, who I did some podcasting with. He didn't have it. And he would admit that he didn't have it. Now, he was able to reflect, and eventually he was able to look back and say, you know, maybe I should have had a Dameon Pierce-like perspective in the moment, but he didn't have it. And I think there's a number of things. You just heard Dameon Pierce mention his mom, and I think that the fact that DeMeco Ryans is the head coach, I think that adds to it as well. I don't think Bill O'Brien was quite the guy that you wanted to be around when you were struggling. We heard it, the rookies don't know anything. So I think it's just a culture from DeMeco to CJ. By the way, we'll give you an update on CJ Stroud in a sec, but it just seems like it's a good culture. It's a good perspective, and it's something that's relatable, because the reality is we're talking about a lot of these things and a lot of these players and the performance and stuff, and we're talking about things that we'll never be able to do. You hear CJ Stroud talk about the man in the arena. We'll never be able to do that. Now, it wouldn't be possible without the fans, but we wouldn't be able to do that. But when you hear a guy like Jalen Petrie, a guy like Will Anderson, a guy like Dameon Pierce, you hear them talk about growing spiritually, and you see Dameon Pierce during his toughest times having that type of perspective. That's something that the average Joe, any Jamoke like me or you, can put to practice. So I just thought it was interesting, not necessarily to be able to reflect, but to be able to have that perspective as you're struggling. I thought that was really, really impressive. Speaking of CJ Stroud yesterday, a little bit of a scary-ish moment in practice. He got his foot stepped on early on in team period 3. Didn't miss any reps, seemed to be moving around fine after practice. Here's DeMeco Ryans with an update on CJ Stroud.
What happens from your vantage point with CJ, and I assume there's no concern?
No concern on CJ at all. He's doing great, having a great camp.
He meant about fully stepping on his foot.
No concern with CJ at all. He's doing great.
There you go. That's the update from DeMeco. It'll be interesting to see CJ practice, how he's moving tomorrow. Maybe he's due for a day off. I don't think he would really want that. He's kind of competitive, and I think he needs the rest. But we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. DeMeco insists nothing to see here. They'll be back on the practice field. There'll be a game this week. We'll be streaming right after the game. Probably be at least 1,000 deep in that post-game show. We're 10.1 deep in the community right now. We're pushing to 10.2. The growth is here. The excitement is here. And whether you're a Texans fan or not, it's hard to dislike this team, not just on the field, but off the field. That's some unique perspective from Dameon Pierce. We'll be back at it on the scene. Digital beat reporting continues. And always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Thanks for coming through and listening to what Dameon Pierce had to say. Appreciate everyone very much. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, it's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize